Welcome to chapter 13 of your 2024 story. This week we are going to be talking about the diet that works for you. This is a topic that I wanted to discuss because I get the question often throughout the years of what diet is the best diet? And my answer always is the best diet is the one you're going to stick with and the one that you want to do, the one that you create. I heard this quote and I love this. I think we should have this be our answer with this question of what diet works for us. But the best diet is the one that you don't know that you're on. That's by Brian Wainsick. And I love that. We really shouldn't feel that we're on a diet. And I know it's cliche. Oftentimes we hear that it's a lifestyle, but it really needs to be. So I teach a lecture every week over the years. I've taught this for, over 18 years at the resort. I talk about the math of weight loss and I break it down and I say, okay, if you've got 30 pounds you want to lose, you take 30 times 3,500. And, if you have 10 pounds that you lose, you have 35,000 calories that you're carrying around that we have to pay off. And then I give a financial analogy of, if we want to pay off debt, which that's basically your caloric debt. We have, again, those calories that we're carrying around that basically have to be paid off. And so then I break it down and say, okay, if you were to have to get rid of a financial debt, you would have to spend less than you make. And it's the exact same when it comes to weight loss. If we want to get rid of weight, we have to consume less than we expend. And if we financially, if we were trying to get rid of a financial debt, the things that we would need to know is what we're making, how much money are we making and how much money are we spending? If we didn't know those things, it would be literally impossible to get out of a financial debt. Well, to get out of a caloric debt, which is essentially if we have weight we need to lose, we need to know what we're expending every day and we need to know what we're consuming every day. And a lot of times people over the years, in fact, so when it first started for me, getting into the health and fitness industry, counting calories was actually already something people hated. And it was like old school. It's like, oh, that's caused so many issues and counting calories isn't the way to go. So I got into when it was the fat-free, as long as it was fat-free, you could have whatever you wanted. And then over the years, I've seen lots of different things with Atkins and high protein and the Whole30 and HCG. And now we've got this, the weight loss injections, and there's a million different things that, and ways, and people are trying to find this diet that's going to work for you. And in college, in school, I remember, a professor saying, literally, if it's not something that you can do for the rest of your life, he said, run the other way, because studies also show that there's oftentimes more damage in doing these things and then quitting, and doing these things, and then the body, is better off not doing those things. So oftentimes that can keep people from even trying something in and of itself, which I get. I get why people are really anti-diet, which is probably a great thing. However, it's also important to try and be healthy. We know that weight is not a very great thing for our heart and our health, and diabetes is a really big concern right now. And so it's hard. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to diet, but I need a diet. How do I diet? What's the best diet? And really, it's about creating something that you're not even going to know that you're dieting, but also being aware, because if it's not just not being on a diet, it's a diet that works for you that you don't realize you're even on. So again, back to really knowing what diet is best for you. I love teaching this lecture. In fact, I probably should have maybe had a whiteboard behind me and gone through the math. Maybe one of these weeks we can do that. But just, imagine with me, because it's a very simple concept. With getting out of a financial debt, you spend less than you make, right? Getting out of a caloric debt, you burn more than you consume. And so when I map that out for individuals and I say, okay, let's say you've got this 35,000 calorie debt we need to get rid of. This is what you're burning every day. What are you willing to burn every day? And what are you willing to consume every day? And that's really what it comes down to. And I love teaching this because, well, first of all, it can be depressing because often, to me, it's absolutely essential to understand this, or without understanding this, 100% of the time you'll be frustrated. And weight loss can be extremely frustrating, which in and of itself causes us to start and stop. Because if we're not seeing results, why am I even doing this? So we stop. And then we get remotivated and we start again and we try, we're working out. We think we're eating healthy and we're doing some kind of plan that somebody told us to do. And then we don't see results and then we quit. And then we see something else that somebody else is doing and we try that and we get fresh. So it's this cycle that's ongoing that we can be extremely frustrating. And that's why it's 100% essential to understand the math. And then you can create the diet that's going to work for you. And I love, again, to put this and say, hey, in fact, I'm not going to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't eat. And I'm not going to tell anybody that, hey, you should go to the gym an hour a day. You should lift X amount of days a week. You should, do yoga. You should do this. You should lift this. You should eat this amount of protein. You should eat this amount of carbs. You should, this amount of fat and at this time of the day and because then it's like, we can't even make our decisions. So it's extremely important to not even think about any of that and then decide, okay, this is my reality. I have X amount of calories that I'm carrying around that need to go somewhere. And for me to do that, I'm burning this amount of calories a day, which a lot of people have no clue even what that is. So we have a basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories that your body burns at rest. And it's based off of your height, your weight, your age, male, female, and your muscle. And then any activity that you do on top of that, you add that to your BMR, and that's your total burn for the day or your total out. We do have devices that people use that show, oh, I've burned, 2,500 calories today. And that may be the case, but sometimes those devices, I would say most of the time, those devices aren't accurate. It's an estimate. It's a range. It's actually at least something that we can go from. And over time, we start really understanding what we're burning every day. This is something that I have gotten, I've certainly struggled with, and I see all of the time that we really think we burn a lot more than we do. So our bodies are actually, unfortunately, very, very efficient, and they don't burn as much as we wish they did. Because sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, I've been on my feet all day long and I've been moving all day and I went to the gym for 30 minutes and, I can eat a lot more because I've burned a lot more. Well, that can get us into a lot of trouble. So we have to really understand what we really are burning. And this takes a little bit of practice and time and experience. And, I've been in the industry for over 20 years and I still, I think I have a pretty good idea. So it's hard to know exactly what we're burning. But again, the devices are great. We can use those at least to start with. And then over time, with tracking, we can know whether or not those are accurate. And then the second thing, so then this is how we create the diet that works for you. When you know what you're burning, you know what your out is, you know what your debt is, you know what you can afford to spend. So I love to approach it like this. And when it comes down to it, for me personally, I can afford about 1,500 calories. That's just what I've learned over the years. And don't take that and think that that's you. I mean, everybody's so different. It might be quite a bit more for you. It might be a little bit less, depending again on your height, your weight, your age, your activity level, so many different factors, muscle, really goes into that. So again, for me, so if that's my reality, then I get to decide, and this is the most important thing that I can help when we talk about a diet that works for you to think about is, okay, now how do I want to spend those? And this has to be something that you take ownership of and you say, okay, well, what do I like? And how do those foods make me feel? And what's going to keep me full and satisfied? Because 1,500 calories can be a lot of food. If you've been to the resort, you know and understand that 1,200 calories can be very satisfying if you choose those foods wisely. Because I can eat 500 calories, really, you can drink 500 calories in 30 seconds flat and not feel still be starving or hungry. And so spending those calories really wisely, when you think about it, most people are pretty good at, spending their money wisely, or at least not wasting. Like someone's not going, or they'll at least put some thought into how they spend their money. What do they want? Do they have the money? Like, is the money even there? Right. And what things are they going to buy something that's going to be a waste of money? Oftentimes, no. I mean, if you spent money over the years, I know for me, I've wasted a lot of money, and I do not like wasting money. In fact, it's really upsetting. It's like, oh, that was such a waste. And so we make different decisions in the future because we've learned that was a waste. So if we approach that the same with our nutrition, like, oh, I don't want to waste my calories. I have 1,500 calories to spend. That's what my body's caloric needs are. What's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck? And how can I feel great, enjoy my food? Because I'm a big believer that we have to enjoy our food. If we're just miserable and not eating things that we like. Now, having said that, I have to just preface, the more you eat something, the more you crave it. So somebody, if they never eat vegetables, they're not going to want vegetables. So some of this we do have to change, our palate, and it takes time, because sometimes it's like, well, I want cookies. Okay, well, you only get 1,500 calories, and how do you feel on just cookies? And how many were you able to have? So not only physically, like your body's probably not going to have energy. You might feel sick to your stomach, and you might have only been able to have, I don't know, if it's a crumble cookie, maybe 2. And, does that keep you full and satisfied for the day? So again, and a lot of people are like, because we've exposed ourselves to so many different opinions and diets over the years, it's hard to even know. And sometimes we have to start from scratch, and maybe even have some guidelines and boundaries that are till we get to the point where we can trust and really know our intuitive decisions, if that makes sense. So there is wisdom in sustainability with finding the diet that's going to work for you. In a world that's saturated with diet trends and quick fix solutions, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed by the myriad of choices. I mean, today it's so crazy how many opinions are out there, and honestly conflicting. I remember being early in the industry, like eggs were bad, and dairy, it's like, wait, are eggs okay? And now it's like eggs are really good for us. I mean, so it's just so much conflicting advice on the different things that are what's good and what's bad. But the cornerstone of a truly effective diet is its sustainability and how well it aligns with your individual needs, your preferences, and lifestyle. Lifestyle is big. Everybody's going to be at a different point, whether you have kids, your work, what you do during and throughout the day is hugely affects what the food we're going to eat is. So I love the journal prompt for this week. You're going to consider past experience with diets. So I remember talking with a friend, and she had literally wired her teeth shut at one point to try and avoid eating, juice fasts and, cleanses and, a ton of different, very strict counting macros every single day, even tracking. Now, this is the tricky one. So here I am saying this, and then I'm saying to be aware of your calories, because tracking calories for a lot, I mean, like I said early in the industry, for me, it was already like an old thing. It was like, tracking calories was considered like a fad diet. So drastic diets, and I guess maybe it's, people were like tracking, maybe allowing 800 calories. I guess that's really the difference with the tracking of the calories. Is it so restrictive that it's not, that it's unrealistic? Because some individuals, when I'm going through their math with them, their total burn is, 2,500, and then they're only eating 1,200. That's where, to me, calories and tracking can be restrictive. So, yeah, I wouldn't put them in necessarily, because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, our body has certain caloric needs. And if we're over consuming in those caloric needs, we will gain weight. So it's the difference is having a realistic caloric expenditure throughout the day. So again, in the journal prompt, what aspects did you find sustainable in any of those things? Were any of those things that you did in the past sustainable long term? Even these injections that are extremely popular right now, which are helping so many people, can they do it for the rest of their life? Are they going to just take injections forever? And what happens when we stop? I want to say, 75% of that, what was gained or lost is probably going to go back on, if not more. So what challenges did you face in those, and how did they make you feel about your ability to maintain a healthy eating pattern? So a couple things to consider, strategies in finding your diet that's going to work for you. The first, again, is personalization. So tailoring your diet to your tastes. This, again, can be tricky because it's actually a real thing called the pleasure trap. The more you eat something, the more you want it. So this can be tricky if you're like, well, again, all I like is cookies. You tell I like cookies. But if, again, a lot of guests come to the resort and they're like, I don't like vegetables. But after, a few days or a few weeks, they start trying new things. They start tasting a few things. Their palate changes. And I hear this all the time, like water tastes so good at the resort and they never drank water at home. And fruit tastes like dessert at the resort and it tastes so good, but at home they never ate it. So sometimes that has to change. But we still have to enjoy. So for me personally, I'm not a big fan of broccoli or cucumbers. Those are two things that I just don't love. But there's a million other things I can choose and that I really love. I love the taste of a lot of different vegetables and fruits. Again, your lifestyle. So the time of day that you do and are able to consume food, and your nutritional needs. So there are so many different nutritional needs, inflammation or allergies, and different nutritional needs that you may have. So obviously that has to be taken into consideration. For some people, they do need a certain, some people feel better on having more fat in their diet. Some people feel better having more protein. I personally need to have a certain amount of carbohydrates or I have no energy. My brain doesn't work. I'm tired. And so I personally feel better when I have an adequate amount of carbohydrates and not too much. Because then if I have too much, then I feel sluggish and I don't feel great. So really knowing and understanding what your nutritional needs are is big. Consider your allergies. That's a big one. I've got 6 children that all kind of, one feels a little bit, they can't have avocados or they can't have pineapple or they can't have different things. Cultural preferences. And then again, your daily routine, when your day starts at work, how late you're awake. So the personalization, again, you take for me, mine 1500, and I say, okay, I'm going to map this out. That what time, number one, how do I want to split them up? Do I want to have, how early in the morning do I want to consume some of those? I know for me, if I have like a 300 or 400 calorie breakfast, and if I have that a little bit later in the morning, for me, sometimes I wake up and I'm hungry right when I wake up. And I'll have something small, and then I'll have maybe something small again 3 or 4 hours later. And then I'll have my lunch. If I can have my lunch around 1, then really I only have to wait, 4 hours. And I love to have my dinner around 6. And then I really am good for the rest of the night most of the time. Now, that doesn't always happen like that. If we're up later or if we have games or, it's not always an ideal situation. But, I try to, for me, the personalization of your daily routine, creating that and sticking to it as best as possibility. So the next strategy is flexibility. And this is big. Incorporate a variety of foods. So actually, one of the basic human needs is variety. Now, this looks different for everybody because some people prefer having the same things and they get their variety in other areas of their life. So, um, but having a variety of foods also does help ensure that we get the adequate amount of nutrients, and that it keeps us from getting bored. But you're broadening your spectrum of nutrients that your body gets, essentially, is the biggest benefit of having a big variety, but being flexible. So, again, having the daily routine, I would say for me, that's my ideal day, but it might happen 4 or 5 times a week. Maybe not all 7 days. Maybe some weeks it might be all 7 days, but not very often. Sometimes it's like, oh man, we just didn't get around to doing this or doing that, and the kids had something come up and work was late. Or, I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, it's almost a daily having to be flexible. Being extremely rigid just creates that all or nothing mentality. If it's like, well, I either do this all the way or nothing, that's when we get ourselves into a lot of trouble. So I highly recommend being able to be flexible. And that's why the diet that you don't know that you're on is going to be best, because if it's something that's so restrictive and so rigid, it's going to be really hard to stick with long term, and then hard to be flexible. You just have to have some flexibility. Some more than others. I look and see some other people who are able to actually be pretty dang strict with what they do, and they stick with it. But that's their biggest priority, and I think that's awesome. Maybe some other areas in their life they're a lot more flexible with. So you'll be surprised. Maybe you won't be surprised that one of the strategies, we've been talking a lot about this month, but one of the strategies for finding your diet is mindfulness. Staying mindful of your body's cues. Eat when you're hungry. We talked about this last week and all month. Stop when you're satisfied. If you stop when you're full, you're probably already past full. So when you're eating slowly and really paying attention, and if you stop before you're full and you're like, you know what, I'm still hungry, you'll be surprised. Even after 10 minutes, you'll probably be more satisfied than you were 10 minutes earlier. And savor every bite. To me, I really love enjoying my food and savoring every bite to me. And last week I talked about spitting food out if it didn't taste good, because I want those 1,500 calories to all be enjoyable. And so savoring every bite. And then really every week we've talked about the last step really always is finding support. Nutrition professionals, community groups, friends and family that are going to be supportive, that are going to share your journey. Movara is always a really great place that you can turn to with support with our social media or our Facebook groups, and just staying in touch with us. So this week's journal prompt, with this dieting, I want you to consider maybe put pen to paper and write down everything you've done over the years. And, maybe some of you have done more than others, but consider your past experiences with different diets and different eating plans, and then really write which aspects did you find sustainable? Were any of them sustainable? And really ask yourself, what is sustainable? For me, a sustainable diet, again, this is me personally, because there are some who find that, you know what, they can the rest of their life intermittent fast, and that's sustainable for them, like long term, that works. For me, having 3 as balanced meals as possible throughout the day and taking my 1,500 calories and trying to allocate those as best as possible. Again, it's not always, some days it's more than 1,500. Some days maybe I can do a little bit less, but I can usually maintain, if I try and stay around 1,500 with some exercise. And, again, that's sustainable for me. Having the balance of fats, carbs, and proteins, making sure that I do have some protein, some fats, some carbs, that's sustainable for me. So again, writing down all of the different things that you've done, because there's a lot of different diets that people do that they find sustainable. again, for the rest of your life, that you don't even feel like you're on a diet. What challenges did you face with those different things that you've done, and how did they make you feel? Did you have energy? Were you happy? Did you sleep well? And your ability to maintain those patterns. Then take a moment to reflect on those past experiences. Can you recall what kinds of diets and plans that you've tried? This could be including anything from strict diets to weight loss to simply trying to incorporate more fruits and vegetables. This is one thing I love. I heard years ago, it's not about cutting, it's about adding. How many, focusing on nothing else but just adding vegetables. So if you're not consuming any vegetables or fruit, simply making that the diet into your meals. Try to remember how these diets affected you, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. Were you drained? Were you irritable? That's one of the things I'm like, oh man, I know. And I've heard this before. We've experienced this even myself in our family. If it's not, or if it's so restrictive, the individuals are irritable and they're not fun. So we want to be able to still be able to enjoy and have fun and not be irritable while now I'm not going to lie that sometimes it's, we don't want to just be like, well, I'm going to just eat because I don't want to be, it's hard sometimes to not eat the foods that we, think we would like. And so there may be a little bit of irritability, and that's okay. Shift your focus to your current lifestyle, including your daily routine, work schedule, recreational activities, and cultural practices. And how do your daily dietary choices fit into this lifestyle? Do you feel satisfied? Do you think there's room for improvement? This is a great thing with your journal entry this week. Identify ways for improvement or areas that you can improve. Consider the steps that you can take towards maintaining these patterns. And this could be as simple as drinking more water a day. That's a big one. A lot of guests struggle with and focus on. And then involve planning your meals for the week. I know for me, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, meal planning, that can be a really helpful tool. When I take, 30 minutes, an hour each week to write down and meal plan, it alleviates so much stress throughout the week. So taking the time to plan can be great. It's also important to anticipate the challenges that might come with these. So if there is a diet that is maybe a little bit more restricted, let's say it's intermittent fasting, and that you're on vacation and everybody's eating breakfast in the morning and you're not, what is that? How are you going to plan around that? But remember that the goal of this exercise is not to judge or criticize yourself, but to gain a better understanding of your relationship with food and how you can nourish your body the best way possible. So I hope this was helpful. I think it's really important to determine the diet that's going to be best for you, personalize it, know your math, know what you're burning every day, know what you're consuming, and then spend it consume smarter, and decide how, if there's certain foods that you love, don't cut those out. Find a way to incorporate those as best as possible. That's going to be able to help you stick and maintain a healthy weight and have you feel good. And then also, again, enjoy food without abusing the food. So it's a really important thing to do. I would take the time, put pen to paper this week with the journal prompt on finding the diet that works best for you. Next week, so this wraps up our month of talking about nutrition, diets, meal planning, mindful eating, emotional eating, and again, the diet that works best for you. This is such an important, these were really important chapters in achieving your goals with weight loss or health. And so I hope this has been helpful on those. Next week, it starts chapter 14. We are going to be entering in the physical aspect. And next week, we are going to be talking about creating your sustainable exercise routine. Oh man, I was passionate about talking about the nutrition, but I am very, very passionate about the physical activity. It has been a staple in my life. It is magical. It's powerful. Movement is medicine. And I love helping people figure out a way to incorporate it into their lives. So next week, we are going to be talking about creating your sustainable exercise routine in chapter 14. So thanks for joining me, and I'm excited for next week.